Exodus 36. Let Bezalel, Oholiab, and every other skilled worker whom the Lord has given skill, ability, and knowledge for the work of building the sanctuary do all that the Lord has commanded. Moses then called together Bezalel, Oholiab, and every skilled person whom the Lord had given skill and who was eager to come and do the work. Moses gave them all the gift offerings that the Israelites had contributed to the work on the sanctuary. They kept bringing him spontaneous gifts, morning after morning. Finally, all the skilled workers building the sanctuary left their work that they were doing one by one to come and say to Moses, "The people are contributing way too much material for doing the work that the Lord has commanded us to do." So Moses issued a command that was proclaimed throughout the camp. Every man and woman should stop making gift offerings for the sanctuary project. So the people stopped bringing anything more because what they had already brought was more than enough to do all the work. Construction of the dwelling. All the skilled workers made the dwelling out of 10 curtains of fine twisted linen and blue, purple, and deep red yarns with figures of winged heavenly creatures worked into their design. Each curtain was 42 feet long and 6 feet wide. All the curtains were the same size. They joined 5 of the curtains to each other and joined the other 5 curtains to each other. They made loops of blue thread on the edge of the outer curtain of the first set. They did the same on the edge of the outer curtain of the second set. They made 50 loops on the one curtain and 50 loops on the outer curtain that was in the second set. The loops were opposite each other. They also made 50 gold clasps, and they used the clasps to join the curtains to each other so that the dwelling was one whole structure. They also made curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the dwelling. They made 11 curtains. Each curtain was 45 feet long, and each curtain 6 feet wide. All 11 curtains were the same size. They joined 5 curtains together and the 6 other curtains together. They made 50 loops on the edge of the outer curtain of the one set and 50 loops on the edge of the other set of curtains. They made 50 copper clasps to join the tent together so that it would be one whole structure. They also made a covering for the tent of ram's skins dyed red and an outer covering of beaded leather. Then they made acacia wood boards to stand upright as a frame for the dwelling. Each board was 15 feet long and 27 inches wide. Each board had 2 pegs for joining them to each other. They did this for all the dwelling's boards. They made 20 boards for the dwelling's southern side. They made 40 silver bases under the 20 boards, with 2 bases under the first board for its 2 pegs, 2 bases under the next board for its 2 pegs, and so on. For the dwelling's other side on the north, they made 20 boards and 40 silver bases, 2 bases under the first board, 2 bases under the next board, and so on. For the back of the dwelling on the west, they made 6 boards. They made 2 additional boards for the dwelling's rear corners. They were spread out at the bottom, but joined together at the top with 1 ring. In this way, these 2 boards formed the 2 corners. And so, there were 8 boards with their 16 silver bases, with 2 bases under every board. They also made acacia wood bars, 5 for the boards on one side of the dwelling, 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the dwelling, and 5 bars for the boards on the back wall of the dwelling on the west. They made the middle bar, which was halfway up the boards, run from one end to the other. They covered the boards with gold. They made gold rings to house the bars and covered the bars with gold. They made the veil of blue, purple, and deep red yarns and fine twisted linen with figures of winged heavenly creatures worked into its design. They made for it 4 acacia wood posts covered in gold with gold hooks and cast 4 silver bases for them. They made a screen for the entrance to the tent of blue, purple, and deep red yarns and fine twisted linen, decorated with needlework. They made its 5 posts with hooks. They covered their tops and bands with gold, but made their 5 bases out of copper. Exodus 37, building the chest containing the covenant document. Bezalel made the chest of acacia wood. It was 45 inches long, 27 inches wide, and 27 inches high. He covered the chest with pure gold inside and out, and made a gold molding all around it. He cast 4 gold rings for it, and put them on its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. He made acacia wood poles and covered them with gold. He put the poles into the rings on the chest's sides to use to carry the chest. He made a cover for the chest out of pure gold, 45 inches long and 27 inches wide. He made 2 winged heavenly creatures of hammered gold for the 2 ends of the cover, 1 winged heavenly creature at one end and 1 winged heavenly creature at the other. He placed the winged heavenly creatures at the cover's 2 ends. The winged heavenly creatures spread out their wings above, shielding the cover with their wings. The winged heavenly creatures faced each other toward the cover's center. Constructing the table and lampstand, he also made the table of acacia wood, 3 feet long, 18 inches wide, and 27 inches high. He covered it with pure gold and made a gold molding all around it. He made a frame around it that was 4 inches wide and gold molding around the frame. He made 4 gold rings for the table. He fastened the rings to the 4 corners at its 4 legs. The rings that housed the poles used for carrying the table were close to the frame. He made the poles used to carry the table out of acacia wood, and he covered them with gold. He made the containers of pure gold that were to be on the table, its plates, dishes, bowls, and jars for pouring drink offerings. He also made the lampstand of pure hammered gold. The lampstand's base, branches, cups, flowers, and petals were all attached to it. It had 6 branches growing out from its sides, 3 branches on one side of the lampstand and 3 branches on the other side of the lampstand. One branch had 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with a flower and petals, and the next branch also had 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with a flower and petals. A total of 6 branches grew out of the lampstand. In addition, on the lampstand itself, there were 4 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with its flower and petals. There was a flower attached under the first pair of branches, a flower attached under the next pair of branches, and a flower attached under the last pair of branches. Their flowers and their branches were attached to it. The whole lampstand was one piece of pure hammered gold. He made its 7 lamps and its tongs and its fire pans out of pure gold. He made the lampstand and all its equipment from pure gold, weighing 1 𝗀𝗀, making the incense altar, incense, and oil. He made the incense altar out of acacia wood. The altar was square, 18 inches long by 18 inches wide. It was 3 feet high, and its horns were permanently attached. He covered it with pure gold, including its top, all its sides, and its horns. He also made a gold molding all around it. He made 2 gold rings, and he attached them under the molding on 2 opposite sides of the altar. They housed the poles used to carry it. He made the poles of acacia wood, and he covered them with gold. He also made the holy anointing oil and the pure sweet-smelling incense like a skilled perfume maker. Exodus 38. Making the altar for entirely burned offerings. He made the altar for entirely burned offerings out of acacia wood. The altar was square, 7.5 feet long, and 7.5 feet wide. It was 4.5 feet high. He made horns for it, 1 horn on each of its 4 corners. Its horns were attached to the altar, and he covered it with copper. He made all the altar's equipment, the pails, the shovels, the bowls, the meat forks, and the trays. He made all its equipment out of copper. He made a grate for the altar of copper mesh underneath its bottom edge and extending halfway up to the middle of the altar. He made 4 rings for each of the 4 corners of the copper grate to house the poles. He made the poles out of acacia wood, and he covered them with copper. He put the poles through the rings so that the poles were on the 2 sides of the altar when it was carried. He made the altar with planks but hollow inside. He made the copper wash basin with its copper stand from the copper mirrors among the ranks of women assigned to the meeting tent's entrance. Constructing the dwelling's plaza. He also set up the courtyard. The courtyard's south side had drapes of fine twisted linen stretching 150 feet with 20 posts, 20 copper bases, and silver hooks and bands for the posts. Likewise, the north side stretched 150 feet with 20 posts, 20 copper bases, and silver hooks and bands for the posts. On the west side, the drapes stretched 75 feet with their 10 posts, their 10 bases, and silver hooks and bands for the posts. The front side, facing east, was 75 feet. There were 22.5 feet of drapes on one side, with 3 posts and 3 bases for them. Likewise, there were 22.5 feet of drapes on the other side of the 𝘆ecie𝗂𝗿 with 3 posts and 3 bases for them. All the drapes around the courtyard were made of fine twisted linen. The bases for the posts were made of copper, but the hooks for the posts and their bands were made of silver. The tops of the posts were covered with silver, and all the posts surrounding the courtyard had silver bands. The screen for the gate into the courtyard was made with blue, purple, and deep red yarns and fine twisted linen, decorated with needlework. It was 30 feet long, and along the width of it, 7.5 feet high, corresponding to the courtyard's drapes. It had 4 posts, their 4 copper bases, their silver hooks, and their tops and bands covered with silver. All the tent pegs for the dwelling and for the courtyard all around were made of copper. A listing of materials used. These are the accounts of the dwelling, the covenant dwelling, that were recorded at Moses' instructions. They are the work of the Levites, under the direction of Ithamar, Aaron the priest's son, Bezalel, Uri's son, and Hur's grandson from the tribe of Judah, made everything that the Lord had commanded Moses to make. Working with Bezalel was Oholiab, Ahisamach's son from the tribe of Dan, who was a gem cutter, a designer, and a needleworker in blue, purple, and deep red yarns and in fine linen. The total amount of the gold that was used for construction of the whole sanctuary, gold from the uplifted offerings, was 29 kikars and 730 shekels in weight, measured by the sanctuary shekel. The silver from the community census totaled 100 kikars and 1,775 shekels in weight, measured by the sanctuary shekel. They gave a bekah per person, that is, half a shekel, measured by the sanctuary shekel, for everyone who was counted in the census, 20 years old and above, 603,550 men. 100 kikars of silver were used to cast the bases for the sanctuary and the bases for the veil, 100 bases from 100 kickers of silver, 1 kicker for every base. He used 1,775 shekels of silver to make the hooks for the posts, cover their tops, and make bands for them. The amount of copper from the uplifted offering was 70 kikars and 2,400 shekels in weight. He used it to make the bases for the meeting tent's entrance, the copper altar, its copper grate, and all the altar's equipment, the bases all around the courtyard, and the bases for the courtyard's gate, all the dwelling's tent pegs, and all the tent pegs used around the courtyard. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Please come back tomorrow for another segment of our 365 Bible Reading Initiative. Please also be sure to like, comment, and definitely subscribe. Also hit the bell. That way you can receive the notifications for the premieres. We're going to premiere every single day. When I say every day, I mean every day. All 365 days, because no day doesn't count. Sunday counts, Saturday counts, Monday through Friday. It all counts. So please be sure to just join us here tomorrow. Same time, same location. Be sure to, like I said, subscribe and hit the bell so that you can receive the notifications. And also share this with somebody who you know could definitely benefit from hearing the word of God. I pray that this is transforming your life, and I pray that God is pricking your heart and speaking to you through his word. All right, y'all. Have a great evening.